Oh my God, something really embarrassing happened to me the other day. I don't even know if I want to share this story. It's too embarrassing. Thank you to my heroes, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. Keeping the dream alive, making it all possible. Thank you, Squarespace. More about them in a bit. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Brain Blaze. As always, I'm your host, Simon Wams here. One of my writers, in this case, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin has written me a script. Ridiculous examples of corporate doublespeak. Oh, I know why we're doing this one. Because there was that SpaceX thing. This was like 2 weeks ago now, and I'm sure like last year by the time you're seeing this. But it was like the rocket blew up and everyone was like, really good job. And I read into it and I was like, it's okay that the rocket blew up because it was the first time they blow up. It's what happens. It's fine. But it was kind of like, it was weird to see it hailed as a success when it was. I mean, it was. It was
perfect. But no, you just had to blow it up. You.
People love to compare the modern world to George Orwell's 1984, but I feel like they're all forgetting about the best part of the book. Given how much we voluntarily allow ourselves to be surveilled thanks to smartphones and other such technology, it's easy to feel like Big Brother is watching you. You research one video on fighter planes and suddenly your browser is nothing but ads for Lockheed Martin's F-22 Raptor. Yeah, dude. I don't understand this. I posted this on Twitter, but I literally get adverts from like Lockheed Martin telling me about it literally says the best offense is a good offense. The F-22 Raptor. And I'm like, who the fuck do you think I am? Like, what are the odds that I'm at procurement for a government? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the one who pulls the strings on whether we get the F-22 Raptor or not. Why are you advertising Lockheed Martin?
Yo-ho-ho, mateys! Hi, guys!
Today, I want to tell you about something that's going to take your online game to the next level. It is, well, who else would it be other than our friends over at Squarespace? Look, if you ever want to make a website for any reason whatsoever, and you go anywhere else other than Squarespace, you must be clinically insane. They could put you in the hospital. What's that? They section you. Because Squarespace is just, it's ridiculously easy, it's ridiculously affordable, they do have all of these, it's super feature rich, everything you need, and you need to have no skills. Like, you can be a completely skillless individual, you can be an absolute incompetent. Maybe that's a bit harsh. And you can still use Squarespace to make a website. All you do is you use my link below. You go over to Squarespace and then they're like, hello there, friends. Look at all these beautiful templates. Peruse our wares. And you're like, well, I like that one. You click on it and then you add some pictures. If you want, you add some text. You make it exactly how you want it. And then you just publish it. Boom. Easy. And you have somehow, despite you having no skills in design or code, you've got a beautiful website on the internet. Can you imagine it? It seems impossible, doesn't it? But it's not impossible. Anything is possible with Squarespace. Plus, they got loads of other tools. You want to do member areas where you can like sell content to your fans or whoever your business operates with? You know what I'm talking about. There's member areas. There's email campaigns. There's analytics. So you can see who's visiting your website. And that information is useful because you've been like, okay, people like this about my website. They don't like this. They're not visiting for long enough. All of this like website-y stuff, which is important. So look, if you're ready to take your online game to the next level, head on over to squarespace.com/blaze for a free trial and use the promo code BLAZE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. You won't be disappointed. You'll be supporting me and this show. Thank you. And yeah, brilliant. Let's get back to today's video. We all understand that this is how cookies work and that making ourselves the product is the cost of using a largely free internet, but it's still more than a little creepy every time it happens. Yeah, I hope today's video is sponsored by a VPN. That would be a nice tie-in. But the often overlooked part of Orwell's classic novel is the use of newspeak. And honestly, is there anything better? I wasn't kidnapped and chained to a radiator in Simon's basement, forced to survive on the mushrooms that grow on the cracks in the cement. I was temporarily relocated to a secure location where I can enjoy a fresh supply of organic produce. You're goddamn right. And the Donner Party didn't cannibalize any of its members. Those people's flesh and organs were merely repurposed to ensure their continued utility. I love this. It's not doublespeak. It's just putting a positive spin on things. No matter how tragic something may have been, you just need to spin that shit around faster than Dead or Alive, Dope, or Flow Rider. I don't understand any of those references. I know Simon won't get any of those musical references. I'm sorry! Since they aren't about Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac are the best! But you could always expand your musical horizons while employing the use of a state-of-the-art sound processing tool, or as normal people call them, headphones. These sorts of doublespeak are fantastic. They can make mundane things sound incredible and make horrific accidents more palatable. United Airlines passenger removal. Oh, wait, was this the dude who got dragged off the flight and he was like screaming and shit? Wait, who was at fault there? Was it the dude or was it the airline? I've already forgotten. I'm sure it was the airline, right? They're like manhandling a screaming dude off a plane. Oh my God, I don't remember this. This was pre-COVID, right? It's no secret that airlines have a habit of overbooking flights. I don't really know why this is allowed. Allegedly, it's because lots of people book flights and then don't show up without actually cancelling. I'd say that's got to be fairly rare. I mean, I've done it a few times, but compared to the number of flights I've taken, it's not a lot. Whatever the reason is, we all know that it happens constantly. Usually airlines will offer people the option to volunteer to be bumped to a later flight. Like, no, this one. This is the one I booked. I'm not sitting around in the airport for another 4 hours waiting for the next one.
Nope, not here.
These can be pretty sweet offers too. I was once waiting to board a plane when the staff came searching for volunteers to take a later flight. Their first offer was a seat on the next flight and travel voucher for a free flight later or something. Wait, that's a pretty good deal. I was flying home from college the day before Thanksgiving, so that wasn't a particularly attractive offer, but once they upped the offer to include $500 in cash money, I was disappointed that somebody else threw up their hand faster than me. Holy shit. Yeah, I'll be like, I'll take it. Oh. I mean, nowadays I probably just, I want to go home for fuck's sake. But I remember once my flight was delayed. Like, I used to, if I was flying back from, like, if I'd been to visit my parents in the UK, I'd always get the last flight out on a Sunday evening. And it was often delayed. And one time it was delayed like 4 hours, which was rough. But then they put me in a hotel for the night and gave me like €300. And I was like, win, to be honest. And I just had to fly back the next day. I had to wear my underwear for like an extra day, but it wasn't that bad.
That smells like ass.
On April the 9th, 2017, United Express, a regional branch of United Airlines, Flight 3411 out of Chicago, experienced such an overbooking. Possibly, at least. Some accounts say they were overbooked, and some say they needed to make room for 4 deadheading employees. Either way, the passengers were already seated when the airline decided they needed 4 people off the plane to make room for their employees so they could get where they needed to be for their next shift. But there weren't any volunteers. It probably didn't help that the airline representative was a real bitch about asking for volunteers. In that situation, you have to be nice. You're asking people for a favor, you know? It's like, get off the plane. It's like, no, I'm paid for my ticket. Like, I'm going on this flight. Go away. Passengers weren't yet recording what happened, so I can't give you our exact wording, but from witness testimony, the supervisor said something along the lines of, we have United employees that need to fly to Louisville. 4 people need to get off this plane, or we're not going anywhere. The airline, oh my God, something really embarrassing happened to me the other day. I don't even know if I want to share this story. It's too embarrassing.
Okay.
I was on the outskirts of town. I'm sure it's not that bad. Tell me it's not that bad. I was on the outskirts of town and I was taking a bus because I dropped my car off at the garage and I needed to get a bus to the metro so that I could get back home. And the garage is really far out of town. And I didn't realize, but my travel card, like, you know, the card that lets you travel on the public transport in a city, wasn't valid. And I'd never been on a bus outside the city. It's been a long time since I've been on a bus. And I'm waiting at the bus stop. And then the door opens, people get off, and then the door starts to close really quick. I'm like, oh, shit. So I was like, oh my God, I was on my phone or something, distracted. I was like, quick, hop on the bus. And then sit down. And I'm listening to music. I'm looking at my phone, just like blah, 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 blah. And then the bus is just waiting there. And I'm like, just sitting in my seat. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's like, you know, it's got the little delay, you know, or it's syncing up with its timetables. And eventually someone comes up to me and is like, you need to buy a ticket. And I'm like, what? We're not going anywhere because you don't have a ticket. And I'm like, oh my God. And so the bus driver must have been shouting at me and I'm just sitting there looking at my phone. And then I realized the reason the door closed so quickly was because you're not supposed to get on at the back of the bus. You're supposed to get on the front and buy a ticket. So they thought I was just some dude who'd like tried to hop onto the bus and then seen me. And then the bus driver wasn't going anywhere. And I'm like, oh. It was so embarrassing. And then I go to the front and I say to the bus driver, it's like, but I have the ticket. And he's like, you need to buy a ticket. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I'm going here. And he's like, you're on the wrong bus. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. It was the most embarrassing thing that's happened to me in a very, very long time. Oh my God, I feel embarrassed just thinking about it. Jesus. The airline should have realized that they needed to use the carrot instead of the stick in this situation. Finding volunteers to defer to a later flight can really be difficult or even impossible without adequate... Oh, and the bus was full. The bus was like full of people. And they're all looking at me like, you fucking thieving bastard. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it hurts. It can be really difficult or even impossible without adequate compensation. It's even harder once people are already seated. That $500 was a no-brainer when I was standing in line waiting to board, but if I was already seated, buckled in, and had my carry-on luggage safely stowed in the overhead compartment, I honestly don't know whether or not I'd take the deal at that point, but I'd definitely have to think about it. I'd take it. I'll be like, yeah, cool, 500. Let's go. If instead of making a pretty sweet offer, they just rudely demanded 4 people leave the plane, there's not a chance in hell I'd be getting out of my seat. Yeah, I'd be like, no. But they are in charge. They are in charge. And if you've been randomly selected, well, you just drew the short straw, didn't you? You gotta leave. I mean, it's their plane. It's like they can refuse you service and they'll refund you. Not that I'm saying how they dealt with this situation was right, but if they say you gotta leave, you gotta leave. But Trustpilot will be hearing about this one. United described what followed as the involuntary denial of boarding of 4 passengers. This is a completely legal practice where the airline can refuse to let someone who purchased a ticket onto a plane, though they are required to compensate that person. It is also a bit nebulous as to whether or not that applies to people who have already been boarded onto the plane, but that's not the part that caused outrage. 4 passengers were selected for involuntary denial of boarding, and they were required to give up their seats. However, one of those passengers, 69-year-old Dr. David Dow, politely declined their request. He was a pulmonologist and had patients to see the next day. I know everyone is flying for a reason and they all want to get where they're going, but when the doctor specializing in respiratory diseases says he needs to see his patients, that's probably more important than why most of the people are on the plane. Oh, Kevin, I don't know. I've got to be back in Prague to record videos. I'm a very important, busy man. But United had made their decision and they were going to stand by it. An airline supervisor called the police to remove a screaming Dr. Dow from the plane, banging his head on the armrest and seeming to knock him unconscious. He was then dragged past the other passengers and off the plane. In the aftermath, it was disclosed that Dow's nose was broken, he had 2 teeth knocked out, and he'd suffered a significant concussion. No fucking shot. I hope they sue the out of United. I know that may sound like the police beat up an old man and dragged him off the plane at the behest of the airline, but remember, Dow was merely being involuntarily denied boarding. Still, fuck you. Get ready to take your fucking wallet out. If Simon hadn't already called for it to happen, fear not, Dr. Dow was eventually fine, and he absolutely sued United Airlines. Yes! They settled for an undisclosed amount of money, which either means that Dow really loves his work or he's enjoying his retirement sipping margaritas at some tropical resort. He got money! He got that money, and this was such a famous case. It's millions. Right, it's got to be millions. Toyota's 5.2 million recalled cars. From 2009 to 2011, Toyota had to issue 3 separate but related recalls on a wide range of their cars produced as early as 2003. I can't find the final numbers, but as of January 2010, 5.2 million cars had already been recalled. That's a lot of cars, so what could have been the cause of such a massive recall? According to Toyota, it was a floor mat issue. You know, the thing on the floor of your car that you barely pay attention to and probably wouldn't even notice if somebody removed. You'd notice it when you next took it for cleaning, though, wouldn't you? That was the cause of the problem. It sounds like it was a minor issue, so we can probably end this entry there. Yeah, except floor mats are really close to that brake and accelerator thing. So I'd be thinking like the accelerator's going to get stuck under the floor mat or something like that and cause terrible accidents. But then don't recall them. Just be like, please throw away your floor mats. We'll mail you some more. And I'll be like, cool. Because that's easier than sending my car back to fucking Toyota. When was these Toyotas made? 2003? I have a Toyota that's in this range. I guess I should check those car mats.
Toyota.
But just for the hell of it, why don't we look at exactly what sort of a problem a floor mat could actually cause in a car? The issue that had been plaguing both Toyota's more affordable cars and their luxury division Lexus was that cars would just suddenly and uncontrollably accelerate. God damn, I'm a big brain. That sounds like a pretty big deal, and yes, it resulted in a number of crashes. It's also a good reminder that the thing you hear all the time about companies calculating the cost of lawsuits before doing recalls is absolutely true. Crashes as a result of this floor mat issue had been reported as early as 2004, but it took another 5 years for them to issue a recall, even though not everybody survived those crashes. Oh my god, that is just brutal capitalist piece of shitness, isn't it? As far as a corporation is concerned, your life is simply a line item expenditure that needs to be compared on their budget sheets against the cost of a full-on recall. Yes, because companies are not people. They don't have ethics and, morals. They're money-making machines. It's what they do. While most cases of corporate doublespeak are pretty silly, this one actually carried with it some issues. Because they were framing their broken-ass cars as having floor mat issues, that resulted in floor mat entanglement of the gas pedals. Their initial recall only addressed the issue that they were putting forth. Toyota removed and replaced floor mats in millions of cars, but the mats were never really the problem. Cars without floor mats were still having issues. Oh, with many reports of what Toyota referred to as sudden unintended acceleration. That sounds a little more intense than just a floor mat problem, but it still doesn't sound too bad. You should just be able to brake or even hit the emergency brake to slow down, right? Well, yes, but cars don't have emergency brakes. Maybe, I don't know. They do, I guess, but it's a button. In my car, it's a big P, and you press the P, and it's like... I don't imagine if I'm going along the motorway, 100 or, fast, and I press that P button, it's not going to slam on the emergency brake. It's going to be the computer will be like, boop, boop, you're traveling too fast to put on the brake. Right? It's a button. It's not like a back in the day.
I'm so fast, you couldn't even comprehend how fast I am.
Well, that depended on the car. Some models were able to apply brakes and eventually come to a complete stop, while others were only able to reduce speeds to about 10 miles per hour. That's certainly better than crashing into somebody while going 100, but if I had my druthers, I'd prefer not to crash at all. Who knows? Maybe that's just me. Of course, Toyota did have some pretty clever workarounds that they suggested. Their first idea was just to throw the car into neutral. This disengages the gears so your car can't accelerate anymore. But it also, I can't just traveling along. Oh, I suppose you could put the thing into neutral. That would work, I think. But it also revs up your engine to much higher speeds than you really should be. If the car has a rev limiter and everything is working properly, this isn't a great thing to do, but it shouldn't be a problem. Also, I'm not particularly concerned with blowing my engine because I'm revving it to 9,000 RPM. It's yeah, because otherwise I'm going to crash at 100. And also, that sounds not my problem. It sounds like I'm going to get some money to repair my car because they almost killed me, and just because I'm a big brain, I slipped it into neutral and the engine blew up.
You just had to blow it up. You and your pride and your...
Kerchoo!
Then again, if everything was working properly in these cars, you wouldn't be experiencing sudden unintended acceleration in the first place. If everything was not working properly, revving your engine this fast can absolutely destroy it, which again, I'm totally okay with. The other suggestions were to either turn your ignition to the accessory position, the one that lets you listen to the car radio and stuff without the engine being on. I just learned what that was called. Or to simply turn the car off entirely. Both of these will definitely stop the car from accelerating uncontrollably, but it'll also kill the power steering and brake assist. I had the power steering suddenly stop working on a car before, and if you're not used to steering, it can become a huge challenge. My first car didn't have power steering. It was fine. It was small, but it was fine. Although if you shut the car fully off, there's always the chance that the steering wheel would just lock anyway, in which case you really don't have to worry about how much heavier the wheel feels anymore. I think the lesson from all of this is that if your car's manufacturer issues a recall for literally anything, you should just operate under the assumption that you're driving Stephen King's Christine until you can get the car fixed. Sure, they may claim it's a tire pressure sensor malfunction, but for all you know, they accidentally shipped all their cars with tires filled with hydrogen, and they've been exploding left and right. SpaceX Starship. Here we go. I knew this one was in here. Of course, I couldn't talk about corporate doublespeak without bringing up the topic that spawned this whole video, the first test of SpaceX's combined Starship and Super Heavy first stage booster. There are a lot of different narratives going around about what happened, depending on how much a particular outlet either likes or dislikes Elon Musk, and most of those narratives are more than a little bit biased. I don't know, Elon Musk does some good shit, does some shitty shit. I'm like, okay, Twitter. I think that's a bit of a mess, to be honest, Elon. SpaceX, pretty cool. Tesla, I feel neutral about. Like, I don't think I'd buy a Tesla, but I think it's very cool, and I think they paved the way for a lot of like electric car stuff that's happening now, which I think is cool. The one where they're putting chips in people's brains, I'm like, that seems it's a little bit further off than you might think, Elon. But generally, I'm kind of like, I don't know, some good, some bad. He comes across as a bit of a belle sometimes, but of course he does. He's like an eccentric billionaire. He's got a right to be a bit of a belle. The test flight was scheduled to take place on April the 17th, but it was aborted at the last minute due to a frozen pressurization valve. Technically, they aborted 7 minutes before the last minute, but they decided to proceed with a dress rehearsal and aborted 40 seconds before takeoff. They needed 48 hours to prepare for a second attempt, but they were in luck. Scheduling a launch can be difficult on account of weather conditions and all of the crap that's already orbiting the Earth getting in the way, but they managed to find another launch window on April the 20th. And at first, things were looking great. Starship is the largest and heaviest spaceship ever built, weighing nearly 6 times that of the largest spaceship successfully used. The ship achieved liftoff and began soaring into the Earth's atmosphere. However, shortly after liftoff, 3 of the Super Heavy boosters' engines failed, with up to 5 more possibly failing throughout the flight. It wasn't perfect, but things looked like they were going to be okay. About 3 minutes after liftoff, Starship was supposed to separate from the first stage booster. The booster would then make a controlled splashdown into the Gulf of Mexico, while the Starship rockets fired for another 6.5 minutes. Once the ship's rockets stopped firing, it would slowly fall out of its trans-atmospheric Earth orbit, and about an hour later it would crash down into the Pacific Ocean 100 kilometers from the Hawaiian island of Kauai.
But you didn't.
But obviously, none of that last bit happened, either because of the failed engines or a problem with the hydraulics. The stage separation did not properly occur. The Starship began to tumble before experiencing what SpaceX referred to as a rapid unscheduled disassembly. You've probably seen the footage yourself already, but for anybody who hasn't, that's their corporate doublespeak way of saying that the spaceship blew the fuck up, to thunderous applause. But it's a joke, right? This isn't like them saying, about the unscheduled acceleration. Rapid unscheduled disassembly is like, it blew up. It blew up, and we're making a joke about corporate doublespeak. No, it was a joke. They know what they're saying. Many sources have reported that the ship was always intended to explode, as evidenced by Elon's statement that they should expect something exciting to happen. This is obviously not true. The flight plan we just went over is exactly what was intended to happen. If this was intended, then SpaceX probably wouldn't have referred to the explosion as unscheduled. However, other sources were quick to call the launch a failure on account of the rapid unscheduled disassembly of a roughly $200 million spaceship and the $13 billion that Elon personally lost in SpaceX stock over the subsequent 24 hours. While those numbers are accurate, it's not accurate to say that the launch was a failure. Sure, it wasn't intended for the ship to blow up, but it wasn't unexpected either. On April the 16th, the day before the intended launch, Elon made some statements during a Twitter Spaces event. He said, "It's crazy he owns that as well, isn't it?" It's a proper billionaire right there. He said that he wanted to set expectations low, giving the launch a roughly 50% chance of success. He also successfully predicted that the initial launch would get postponed, not because he's some sort of prophet, just because he wanted everyone to be super careful during all the safety checks in the hopes of, not making the world's largest spaceship explode. More importantly, while he only gave the mission a 50% chance of success, Elon did provide us with a clear measurement for what SpaceX thought a success would look like. Quote, "If we get far enough away from the launch pad before something goes wrong, then I think I would consider that to be a success. Just don't blow up the pad." Starship may have undergone a rapid unscheduled disassembly, but the launch pad is still in one piece, so I think we have to call this launch successful. It's not like Elon was backpedaling after the fact. This was the bar that he and SpaceX set for the world before the launch, though I guess SpaceX's shareholders must have missed the Twitter Spaces stream, but Elon didn't lose $13 billion following the explosion. He simply experienced temporary negative growth due to changing market conditions. Newspeak rules. And that's where we end today's video. Thank you so much for being here. If you like it, like it. If you want to subscribe, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I had to wear my underwear for like an extra day, but it wasn't that bad.
That smells like ass.